Meet Phelim McAleer, producer and director of the film Fracknation. Here's Phelim McAleer at work practicing his brand of investigative journalism. Here he is investigating scientists at the 2008 Copenhagen Climate Conference. Here, he is investigating cast members of the environmental film Age of Stupid. Here he's investigating Al Gore, Susan Sarandon, and Yoko Ono. Here, he's investigating water contamination victims from Dimock, Pennsylvania. The police often have to be called when Phelim does his brand of investigative journalism. This is the kind of journalism that Phelim McAleer says that he does. This is the kind of journalism he actually does.
I'm looking for Professor Phil Jones of the University of East Anglia. Do you not care about ClimateGate? Have you anything to say about ClimateGate?
Meet the Elys from Dimock, Pennsylvania, another Dimock family Phelim McAleer has investigated. Their home's water well was polluted in 2008. 19 other families in their neighborhood were also polluted. Poor drilling and casing by Cabot Oil and Gas led to the contamination of the aquifer that serves many homes on Carter Road.
Water that looks like this because it's full of methane gas. It got so bad that Ely and his cousin, who lives down the street, decided to find out what would happen if they lit their water on fire.
A lot of a flame were coming out when Mike was here.
How big were the flames?
Kind of like that high, I think.
So before Cabot came into town, there was never any problem with the water?
Never any problem with the water.
Well, Scott Ely should know. His family has lived right here since the early 1900s. Scott's great-uncles started out here way back then. His grandmother was born on the mountain behind Scott's house. Many generations of Elys have called this little corner of Dimock home.
Hello, army car!
For the Ely family, the problem runs deep.
Wow!
Underneath the soil, in their roots.
I was born and raised here. I bought this off my father. Many years ago. We put so much into it.
Acres of land, a swimming pool, a pond, and a new generation with roots here too.
Go back in.
So it's kind of hard for me just to pack up and move because everything about me is here.
Scott Ely's neighbors also started reporting strange new problems with their water.
It migrated into the water of the Fornelli family as well.
My kids started getting sick early on in the drilling process. It's sort of like a very bad intestinal bug.
Instead, it was gas in their water. She said her kids were fine at school, then would come home and get sick again.
Never once crossed my mind it was the water.
Down the street, Norma Fiorentino's well blew up one night.
It was just all torn up and flung way out in the yard.
And then they covered it up with a tarp and hay. They put the thing down in there and it read 100% gas.
Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection determined that gas drilling was the culprit.
Cabot has done a lousy job drilling in the Dimock region.
The DEP has issued orders for Cabot to plug 3 wells they've already drilled, which could cost millions of dollars. They also have 30 days to install permanent water supplies for families, including the Elys, who get water delivered.
If Cabot doesn't agree to these terms and get it done, we'll be in court. seeking a court order to enforce what I've just laid out.
Oh, Cabot didn't comply. And in the end, DEP banned Cabot from drilling and fracking in a 9-mile square area around the contamination zone. A contamination zone is no place to live, especially when you have young children. Yet many families got stuck paying a mortgage on a home that had little value without a clean source of water.
I'm paying a mortgage on a house that's completely worthless.
Julie and Craig Sautner planned on retiring here. The swing set in their yard for their grandchildren sits empty and unused.
My daughter and my son-in-law used to bring the grandchildren over here. She doesn't bring them over anymore.
Sautner says her children don't feel safe at the house ever since their water supply became contaminated when Cabot Oil Company started drilling and something got into their well water. In the front yard, a new tower to vent the methane so it doesn't collect inside the house and explode. And in their driveway, water from their well.
This was taken out of the well on March 20th.
The 9-mile drilling and fracking ban around Dimock remains in place today, as DEP says the methane levels in the water, as of 2016, have not yet stabilized.
But for most of those on Carter Road, who got $25 an acre for the drilling and are hoping for royalties in the future,
Quality of life is gone for us ever since all this happened.
Our senators and representatives don't seem to want to do anything for us. They're all for the drilling. They're all for the almighty dollar.
$25 an acre is not anything compared to what we're losing here.
in Dimock, Pennsylvania, Christine Frizzau, RT.
In his film Fracknation, Phelim McAleer covers the events in Dimock, but the film frames all of the Dimock victims as frauds. Fracknation claims that their water was always polluted with methane, and it's been there since before George Washington ran the country.
I began to suspect that Craig Sautner's claims about contaminants were greatly exaggerated, or maybe even false.
Phelim McAleer has built a small media empire by claiming that fracking-related water contamination victims are all frauds, because their water was always full of methane.
There are even towns across America called burning springs. That's how much gas is out there. And George Washington and Thomas Paine lit the water on the Millstone River in New Jersey on December 15th, 1798, 150 years before fracking even started.
There's a big difference between naturally occurring methane in water and stray gas migration into drinking water caused by drilling and fracking.
How many of you lost your water supply? And there are many more.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that these victims aren't lying. It would be virtually impossible for 19 families to fake contamination that fools a state regulator. Craig and Julie Sautner's water was so polluted that Cabot bought their house and had it demolished. The land was sold to a neighbor with the agreement that no dwelling can be built there, and the water well was locked off.
Despite paying more than $300,000 in fines, Cabot says it is not responsible, a position Pennsylvania's Secretary of Environmental Protection says is eroding support for natural gas development.
Cabot has just lawyered up and PR'd up and has told Pennsylvania that that we can pretty well shove it.
Cabot did try hard to tell Pennsylvania and the polluted families on Carter Road to shove it. They couldn't quite get away with it, though, and Cabot was forced to settle 2 lawsuits. One class action lawsuit by the polluted families, and one filed by the state of Pennsylvania. Sounds like the end of the story. Oh, it's not. Let's take one of the Dimock victims and see how those Cabot settlements turned out for him. This is the home of Ray Kemble. He bought the place 25 years ago. This is Ray's water. Ray's home sits on a beautiful 7 acres, complete with a professional mechanic shop and a singing creek. Before the home's water was polluted, the value of the home and the land was about $400,000. Now the home is virtually worthless and unsellable. No water source. Yet, the settlements with Cabot only paid Ray $200,000. That's a $200,000 loss for Ray. Not a loss that most people could recover from. Ray certainly hasn't. Ray is still paying a mortgage and taxes on a home that can't be sold and is likely making him very sick. One of the failed gas wells is 500 feet from Ray's front door. It's been clanking and polluting for 4 years as Cabot works to repair it. And here are Ray's water buffaloes. Huge water tanks that Ray has to refill himself for the past 5 years. This is Ray's water truck. Many families in this neighborhood borrow it to fill their water tanks also. The cost comes out to about $300 a month, and that's paid for by the victims. When you add up the cost of the water, buying bottled water to drink, and heating the water buffaloes all winter so they don't freeze. These victims have been paying that $300 a month out of their own pockets for years. This is what the house looked like when Ray bought it. The fix-up was a family project that took 5 years to finish. Now, even these memories are made painful. Instead of enjoying all he's fought and worked so hard for, Ray can only see what he's lost, and that includes his health. Living across from this has taken a real toll on Ray's health. For Cabot, Ray Kemble is a necessary sacrifice. Scott Ely and his neighbors, the Huberts, sued Cabot to recover their losses. A federal jury trial was held in spring of 2016 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Guess who showed up to practice his brand of investigative journalism? Yep. This is the kind of journalism Phelim says that he did in Scranton. This is what he actually did.
Would you like to apologise to the people of Dimock? Now that the judge
Yes,
has said,
I'm in a parking
now that your own lawyer
garage
has said that no fracking fluid in the water. The judge yesterday dismissed charges. Said,
harassing people. Came out from behind the car and
your own lawyer said there was no fracking fluid in the water. Craig be in serious trouble.
you know, he knows some of these people. It's inciting. He's really trying to incite a fight.
Phelim followed Julie and Craig Sautner down the street, asking them to apologize to Dimock. This is the same family whose house was bulldozed after Cabot bought it and their water well was locked off. Phelim saw an opportunity to work his fracking victims are liars brand. He pumped out 9 fact-bending articles that served the agenda of Cabot Oil and Gas, and again framed water contamination victims as frauds. Any testimony from the trial that served Cabot Oil and Gas, Phelim repackaged and called it fact. The articles make wild claims, like this. Basically, the idea here is just to make these water contamination victims look bad. The articles claim that the Elys are bad parents, that they're liars, that their water was never contaminated. No mention of the consent orders that the state filed against Cabot. No mention of Cabot's fines or their poor cementing on their gas wells. In these articles, anything said that served Cabot's case was fact. Anything said that supported the victims was ignored. Cabot also has a webpage supporting their positions. It makes exactly the same claims as Phelim's articles. Cabot acted as a prudent operator in conducting its operation. Phelim says there are few facts showing that Cabot's drilling polluted water. Cabot Gas and Oil received 57 violations in 2008, the year they contaminated the water around Carter Road. They faced 3 major violations called consent orders, where the state ordered them to take action. Both Cabot and Phelim forgot about all of that entirely. Of course, Cabot claims the methane was always in the water. Phelim agrees. Cabot even trotted out 2 women in their 80s to testify at the trial about old water wells having methane, including this one, who also appears in Fracknation. Cabot claims that the Ely's experts were unqualified. Phelim's articles also discredit the Ely's main witness, the more than accomplished, hugely respected Professor Tony Ingraffia. Unqualified is not a word to use when looking at his credentials. Cabot uses citations for their claims. Who are they citing? Who do you think? Phelim McAleer. But the silliest, most deceptive claim is this one. Cabot claims they hadn't even started drilling when the Elys first complained of water pollution. Only 2 of the 15 gas wells that were drilled near Carter Road were allowed to be entered into evidence in the trial. Since the other 13 were not allowed, Cabot acts as if they were never drilled. Cabot even made a chart. It says that drilling began in September of 2008. Cabot knows that's deceptive. This chart shows that drilling began long before September 2008. It's all just public relations hackery, churned out to cover up the fact that the fracking boom has contaminated hundreds of water wells across this nation. The videos that Phelim released about the Ely trial fit right in.
Now that your water's been cleared by the EPA, would you like to apologise to the people of Dimock? That's assault, Julie.
Well, then get
away from me. Would you like to apologise to the people of Dimock, Julie?
The most troubling part of this story is the huge number of views that these attack videos got. Here's Phelim investigating respected Professor Tony Ingraffia. Professor Ingraffi was still under oath here. He's not supposed to answer questions from the public.
Dr. Ingraffi, do you still insist you're not an activist, even though you've been pictured with activists?
Can you please stop?
Dr. Ingraffi.
No, can you please, wait a minute.
Dr. Ingraffi, why are you hiding behind that lady's coat, Dr. Ingraffi?
This is our lunch hour. What are you doing?
Doctor, why won't you answer
Get
the
a guard or
questions?
the police, please.
Who's this guy?
He's bothering us.
He's bothering me. He's harassing. This is a public street.
He's harassing us.
Guys, come on. Dr. Ingraffi, why are you hiding? Dr. Ingraffi, please answer the questions. You've made a number of allegations. Would you like to apologize to the people of Dimock? Dr. Ingraffi, would you like to apologize to the people of Dimock for making these allegations?
A passerby even asks Phelim to leave the group alone. He won't. After taunting people, Phelim cuts his film to make his victims look angry and mean, and then he gets more than 40,000 views each. And Phelim even claimed that his Facebook was shut down for 24 hours. It never was, but it got him scads of attention. It's a flat-out lie, but it grew long legs anyway. Phelim claims that angry, anti-fracking activists attacked his page because he was telling the truth.
Well, you know, the Dimock Water trial is on. A lot of Fracknation was centered around Dimock, Pennsylvania, which is kind of the ground zero for fracking pollution, alleged pollution. And the trial was there, and I went to the trial. The two families were suing an oil and gas company, and my posts from there were telling the truth about fracking. And suddenly, one of my posts was taken down by Facebook because it violated community standards. I posted some more. Another one was taken down, and they told me it was violating community standards. They suspended the Facebook page for 24 hours.
The Fracknation Facebook page was never shut down. Phelim McAleer seems like the sort of person that you should just ignore and hope they go away. It's hard to believe that he has been so successful selling his faux reporting. Yet, if you check the comment sections on articles about fracking, you'll find people making claims that they heard from Phelim. Here's someone calling the Elys clowns. And here's someone else repeating Phelim's claims verbatim. Fracknation has been successful, shown all over the world, in 2 houses of parliament, to U.S. congressmen, hundreds of universities and Tea Party events across the nation. People come away from watching the film with the idea that these real victims are frauds and liars. Fracknation is the main piece of propaganda used by the gas industry to misinform its political base, whose support has made fracked gas the future of U.S. energy policy. The U.S. Congress is about to pass legislation that will fast-track the installation of fracked gas infrastructure across America. Phelim's brand of fake reporting drives the political base that supports the politicians who write the legislation that is locking us into a fossil fuel-powered future. Meanwhile, because no one can pass right for wrong forever, Cabot lost in the Ely trial. A federal jury found that the Elys and the Huberts had been damaged by nearby gas drilling and fracking.
The two families stood on the courthouse steps and choked back tears of happiness.
We prevailed today.
For nearly 7 years, Scott Ely has been fighting to hold Cabot Oil and Gas responsible for damaging his water. Thursday, he won.
They did something wrong. That was the whole point of getting it into the courtroom. I mean, we're voicing ourselves, we're standing up for our rights.
A federal jury found Cabot's gas drilling in the Dimock Township area was a nuisance to both the Ely family and Ray Hubert's family.
7 years are over. Everything's behind us now. We don't have to deal with them anymore, hopefully.
It's really here, and we've just been through so much with this.
Cabot's lead attorney left the courthouse out a side door. Its other attorneys left without commenting. Cabot maintains it did nothing wrong, saying the families complained of water problems before natural gas drilling began near them.
The entire thing was a roller coaster. It was a truly difficult case.
Feeling vindicated, the Elys hope to move on, but will stay in Dimock Township.
There were 6 Goliaths in there, and all I had was just a little pea stone.